Morning and welcome to day 2. I hope I'm audible. Can somebody give me a thumbs up just to make sure that I am audible? Well, welcome to day 2 of our conference. My name is Tandiwe Majama. I'm actually from Botswana and I am one of the cohort members of the TICE program, the inaugural TICE program. So today is our day 2, and just to give you a bit of a reflection on what we did yesterday. If you're only joining us, no. If you're only joining us for the first time today, so know that the conference is being hosted by members of the Transition, Innovation, and Sustainability Environments program. And we are a group of 27 students who have decided to come together to put together this conference in order to share some insight about what we've been learning and also share insights with other professionals. Now, for day 2, we will be having our opening remarks, and then we are going to have our regional revitalization and youth leadership, a bit of a conversation with Santiago Martinez. And then we're going to have a bit of a coffee break. Thereafter, we will have a chat with Malco Shield about sustainable entrepreneurship. And after that, we will have a bit of a workshop session with the National Youth Council of Ireland, and our day will be over. So if you're joining us for the first time, just to let you know what you missed out on yesterday, it was an exciting day. We had a bit of a chat about smart cities. We have a bit of a chat about the economics of climate change, how every time we're trying to think of climate change, we've always considered it as a climate issue and not necessarily a social issue or an economic issue. There was also a panel discussion about sustainability. And some of our panelists, our moderators, were again members of the TICE program. So while we wait for our guest today, I just wanted to give you guys a bit of a background about TICE. If you aren't aware, it is, again, we call it TICE because the name is honestly too long. So we call it Transition, Innovation, and Sustainability Environments. It's an inaugural sort of program that's being put together by 4 universities. That is the University of Nova in Portugal, and the University of Dublin in Ireland, where most of us are currently based. There is also the University of Poznan in Poland, and there's the University of Danube, I don't know how to pronounce it, but that will be in Austria. So basically, if you are a TICE program member, you go through all of these 4 universities, and you start off in Nova in Portugal. You spend like a semester there, and then you move on to UCD, which is currently our 2nd semester, and then you have your summer, which is what everybody else is looking forward to. And then we will have to go to Poland, which is going to be a bit cold. And then we head over to the University of Krems in Austria. Welcome, everyone. I see some people from Brazil. I see some people from Ecuador. Welcome. See some people from Indonesia. So thank you again. Thank you for joining us for day 2. Very excited. So, like I said, today we will be chatting with Mr. Santiago Martinez from the Regional Revitalization Youth Leadership in Japan. And from my understanding, actually, they're running a fellowship. You should check out their webpage if you haven't. It's like a year-long fellowship in Japan. So it seems like we're going to have a great conversation today. I'm curious about that and what other things they are up to. So this should be great.
Yeah, hello. Can everyone hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, sorry. Just checking. Thank you so much for the introduction and hello everyone. Really good to see you all here. My name is Santiago and I'm from Colombia, so it's really nice to hear there are other South Americans here as well. And I want to, focus mainly on any questions you have. Please start writing them as you have them. I want to have more interaction and answer exactly what you want to know. But before that, I'll give a bit of introduction of what we do here. So I will start just saying I'm here talking to you from Awaji. So I don't know if you know Awaji, but Awaji is the mythological origin of Japan. Actually, it's an island in the middle of Japan where the gods Izanami and Izanagi were the first island they created. And the second really cool thing about the island I am in is that in old times, the food that was produced in the island was such good quality that it was only served in the imperial courts. So it was only meant for the emperor. So this place is amazing, but it has a lot of problems, similar to other rural places in Japan. I was just like even reading the news today and it said, Japan birth rate. This is a record year. Japan's population fell down by 644,000 people. So there's not enough like birth rate to replenish the population. Um, and that's a problem that is happening not only here in Hawaii, but like all Japan. So that's one of the things that our parent company Pasona tries to focus on, which is solving society's problems. And to solve society problems, a lot of the work that they do is in regional revitalization, in regional areas. So you can see here, this is the map of Japan, and the purple areas is places where the company are doing like projects alongside the government to revitalize rural areas, uh, doing things like job creation, creating new tourist spots, transforming old locations into something new, or even like repairing or reconstruction of areas devastated. Like for example, Tohoku, there was an earthquake really big there. I don't know if you guys remember, like a few years ago, and they helped in rebuilding this area as well. But one of the key emphasis of our parent company right now is Awaji, because it has such a rich history and mythology, but it's suffering like from people are not living here anymore. People are moving to the big cities. Nobody wants to live in the rural area. They wanted to make a place where everyone wants to visit and everyone wants to live. They want to transform this island into something really international. And the first thing they did to try to like start building up the island back again, to revitalize it, was this project, which was called Challenge Farm. This started in 2008, and the basic idea was that in to create a space where people could change their normal 9 to 5 and be in contact with nature, and just get some new way of thinking and get like inspired to continue their life. So people from the area, the big cities near to Awaji, like Osaka or Kobe, came to Awaji to just experience nature and just relax for a bit. So that was like the main idea. And at the same time, they're like experimenting with new agricultural processes, new fertilizers, new ways of doing like planting stuff. So that was the first key step that the company took to entering the island. After that, this is a combination of two things, which is they took buildings that were being abandoned and they gave it a new purpose. So this example is this used to be a elementary school, but because there was depopulation, there were not enough kids, and it had to close down. So they tried to give it new life, but making it in the first floor, I think, is like a market of fresh vegetables from around the Waji, and the second floor is like a restaurant, and the third floor is also part restaurant, and it's also like there's some like mini museum of the last students that came to the school. So it's just trying to like give it new life. And in the same area, this used to be an abandoned house, and they transformed it into a coffee shop with a view of the ocean and a really nice sunset view. So it was trying to, how can we take things that are already there and transform it into something new? So of course, Pasona has a lot more other projects, but that's not what I came here to talk to you. I just want to give you an idea of what they do. And the last big project that they came up with was IYF, Awaji Youth Federation. That's where I work. And the mentality of Awaji Youth Federation is let's bring young people from multicultural and multidisciplinary backgrounds to Awaji to come up with new ideas to bring life to the island. Right? So that was the main purpose was, how do we do this? Like how can we create new ideas? And I wait. Oh, I do not. Okay, so that for AYF it started in 2017, and I think it was 25 people from 17 different countries. Each year we bring around 30 people from around 20 countries to just come up with new projects and new ideas to work in this area. And it's been what, 4 years or something, 4 or 5 years. And throughout these 5 years, I want to just share with you guys some of the key learning lessons that I've gotten. I came here in 2019, so in the second generation of the fellowship, but I wanted to share with you some of the key lessons I learned from this so far in our history of AYF. And the first thing comes up, I want to talk about is about people. So if working with people is tough, but especially if it's completely different backgrounds and it's people that have not shared completely the same ideas and mentality that you do. And that happened to me personally. When I came to Japan, I had some experience living and studying abroad and working abroad, but this was the most diverse group I have ever worked with. And even though, we can come up with really cool ideas, it is really, really tough. It's really tough because just people think different and people see things in a different way. And the value that people put to certain things is completely different to the value that other people put on other things. So you really need to learn what moves people, what is that motivates people, what are the triggers for some people, what are like the motivations, how can you interact in a healthy way with people. And the best way is just like, referring judgment, keeping an open mind, and always trying to like just think, if they do something that you don't like, they probably didn't mean to. It's just like in their culture is the way. And that's what I try to do. I always try to like talk to people, learn about their lives, learn about their cultures, what they did in the past, why they did it, how they behave. I paid attention a lot of what they did. And also like trying to experiment with an open mind parts of their culture. So for me, one of the best things that worked was working with, or no, like this was the first time that I had ever lived or interacted with Muslim people, and I decided to do Ramadan with them just to experience what it was. And it was amazing. It was honestly amazing how much that helped me connect with them. I didn't without any intention. I just wanted to experience it. But when we had to wake up at like, I don't know, 3 in the morning before like anyone else, and just like grab dinner together in the middle of the night, um, I noticed they started like talking more to me and opening up and sharing their experiences and what they miss and not. And it created a bond with those people that I had like not been able to do before. So one key thing when you're working with a diverse group is to take your time with them, to really get to know them, to understand them. And yeah, try to find ways that you can, what you share together and what it really cares to create any project to be successful. You really need to understand these people. But even though if you understand them, um, it's still gonna cause like conflict. But conflict is not always bad. The reason that like the diversity creates more innovation is because everyone brings completely different stories to the table. So one of the first ideas that we came here that was with like doing IT and agriculture combined. Um, I was working with a photographer that was from Malaysia. I was working with a marketer from the UK, and I was working with an economist from Canada. And it was amazing, like the different ideas people brought. So like as soon as we started talking about agricultural, the economists started talking about like different like, oh, what are the best things that are grown in Japan, and talking about economic perspective, what will be the most sustainable in the long term if we want to grow certain crops. The the guy from Malaysia was talking about like more like, oh, really cool ideas that he has photographer like taking photos from back home or working in from back home, and like just thinking about visually how could we present it. The marketing person was thinking about how to pitch it to Japanese people and to foreigners, and I was just thinking about like the technical aspect, how could we combine it. So it was a lot of like tension. Sometimes people say like, oh no, this is how it works, but this is that. But like at the end, that tension was the thing that helped us the most in creating something new. The second thing is when I'm talking about people, really important, not only for knowing your team, but knowing the people that you want to help. I think when we're talking about sustainability and just innovation in general, one thing that I've noticed, especially from us young people, is that we really want just to take action. We really want to be like, yes, like just do it, it makes something happen. But you need to stop for a second and really know who are the people involved, who are the people on the ground that will be affected by your innovation or whatever you want to do, and see how they behave, what do they need, what are their pain points. And this is really, really key, regardless of what you want to do, right? If you want to do a business, if you want to just do technology, innovation, IT, if you want to help animals, if you want to help, you know, take care of a forest, you're always going to be people involved, and you need to understand what motivates them. Because if you want to have long-term impact, which is all about sustainability, is long-term, right? People need, like, it needs to survive even if you're gone. That's one thing I learned reading Gates notes. They say like, my mentality towards my work is I want to work until I work myself out of my job. Get to a place where like the impact will continue on regardless if I'm here or not. That's sustainable in my perspective. So, and that's also something that I noticed happened to the first generation of fellows. So the first generation of fellows, there was a Shotenga, which is a shopping street, and they wanted to transform this. Had really cool ideas, right? And this is the ideas they had. They wanted to paint everything, bring it back to life. They had this really awesome concept of having like a roof garden and having like an infinity pool, like just completely transform. the setting of this shotenga or this local shopping street. But once they started talking with the locals, they realized this is not what they wanted. They didn't wanted any big changes. And even if the artist, like I remember seeing this photo and say like, this is gorgeous. This would be a gorgeous thing to happen. But when they showed it to the locals, they said like, we don't want that. And if you notice, like in Japan, it's a place where like you basically don't see much graffiti. Graffiti is a very thing just targeted to the young people in certain cities, but it's not something that you see very much. It's slightly changing, but still this is a very traditional rural area. So they say like, we don't want that. And after talking to the people, they realized that they had to completely change their concept. And they started doing more small things, like cleaning the streets to build their story. And they designed really cool menus. I don't have a picture of the menus, but they designed really cool menus and translated all the Japanese into English to attract more potential like foreigners that would come to visit to the island. So they did the small things. And that's another lesson talking about people is you need to build a local story. You need to build something and show the locals that you can do it, that you can be successful doing it. This is especially true in Japan. In Japan, there's this thing like even if you're successful abroad, even if you are, created $1 million company in Europe or in America or China, whatever, until you create a successful thing here in Japan, people don't trust you. People don't trust you. So that's what they want. You have to start little and start building your local story. And yeah, you have to make people involved in the design of the solutions, to make it sustainable, right? Because these are the people that are going to use the product, and these are the people that are going to keep living here for the long term. So that's like the first key message that I learned here is like taking your time for people. I really believe in like human-centered solutions. Even though it's nature or whatever, people are involved, and you need to know who you're working with, and you need to know like who are the people you want to help, or who are the people that will just implement the solutions on the ground and for the long term. The second thing is about what I want to say, like listening more rather than speaking. So again, this is just like summarizing. Like if you always just share the ideas and you say like, oh, we want to do this, we want to do this, it doesn't work. Like people want to be heard. That's something I learned. Everyone likes to talk about themselves. Everyone likes to talk about their experiences. Just listen, listen, listen and observe everything. Just listen and observe. That people would love if you just talk. Like if you just let them talk, people would love that. People love being heard, and it will help you build a connection with those people by not doing anything. Like the power of inaction is surprising from my perspective. Another thing that we learned was that once you start building something that has an impact, that is really benefiting somewhere in society, um, people will get involved and people will support you. So this is the case for another of our projects that we're currently. This is a project that's currently running. It's called Yunga Ambassador Program. So with AYF, we partnered with FAO, the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, and we brought this program called Yunga, Youth and United Nations Global Alliance, which teaches young people how to live sustainably, how to, they have like uh, different books that talk about different topics regarding sustainability, and plastic, ocean, forest, soil, gender, governability. They have a lot of different topics, and if kids go through the book and do some activities. They earn like a badge to show that they went through it. So we're the representatives in Japan of that. But we wanted to do something new, or my teammates wanted to do something new, and they come up with this program called Yunga Ambassador Program. And this was a program for university students to create social projects. So something that we learned here with the people that we bring over and with all the young people that we done training with is that a lot of young people really want to create impact, really want to create social impact, create social something, social businesses, but they don't know how to start. And we realized, starting is kind of easy. You just need like confidence and someone that believes in you. So that's why this was the start of this program, the Young Ambassador Program. So we got around like 10 to 20 Japanese university students. We got them involved in a year program where we gave them trainings and then gave them a mentor so that they could like start a social project. And then at the end of the year, they were implementing a bit of the project. It was really cool. You could see the growth of these people. They were very shy at the beginning, but they just start building connections and they become really passionate about their projects. And towards the end, they were like really thankful. We had a closing ceremony here in Awaji, and all of them were like, very, very happy seeing each other and sharing the projects. And something really cool was even, the projects that they tried to or they started, it didn't finish after 1 year. A lot of them are continuing the project even after the program. But for us, the biggest learning lesson was how much people supported us. So this is a complete new project. Nowhere else in the world, Yunga is doing something like this. But we started talking to people and contacting people, and people were like, "Yes, I want to get involved." And we got people involved from all over the world that wanted just that said like, "I like your idea. How can I help?" Right. So in this picture, you got people from Japan, people from Southeast Asia, from India, from Europe, from Africa, from America. A lot of people that we contacted, they just say like, yes, yes, how can I help? How can we get involved? And even for me, look, I'm a very introvert person. I'm not someone that like contacts people. Like I have someone else in my team that is the extrovert and the network guy. But I contacted this girl that is below my picture, Laura. Uh, like I had no connection to her, but she works in this think tank called Fundación Ideas para la Paz, like Foundation Ideas for Peace, which is one of the biggest social think tanks in Latin America, and it focuses on peace building. So they were actually involved in the peace treaties in back home to end a 50-year war, civil war, and they're also currently involved in the post-conflict scenario, like making sure like everyone can go back to society and that we can like build peace together for the long term. So it's a massive organization in my mentality. And I just messaged them saying like, hey, I am this. This is a program that we're doing. I would love if you can like come to talk a bit about your experience. And they were like, sounds awesome. I like what you're doing. And we started talking and they decided to come and help us out. For me, it was a really eye-opening. And that's what like, the key message of that I wanted to share here as well was, if you're building something that you really believe in, and if you're building something that has a positive impact, and you show that you're taking the steps forward, people will help you. Maybe not everyone that you contact will answer, but if you start contacting, people will start like saying like, oh, this is awesome, and they will start joining your cause because they will see that you're doing something amazing. And I think one last thing I wanted to share as well before start answering questions is in terms of like the motivation. So, I spend a lot of my time thinking, what motivates people and how can you keep your motivation if you want to work in sustainability? Because it's tough, regardless of what area of sustainability you want to do. sustainable business, or if you just want to do like, climate change, all this area, any area, it's tough to fully dedicate. And I'm someone that I envy people that are like super passionate about something, like they're like, this is like their calling and they're like 100% into this. I'm not someone like that. I have a lot of interest and I have no idea like how to do this. And a lot of my time, I always thought like, you just have to find your passion, right? And just follow that passion. But that never really worked for me, because my passion is jumped from here to there, and it shows in my background. I had studied engineering. I wanted to build something that could help people out, and then I went to education. Then I went back to research and development in nanotechnology, and now I'm come here to like more business aspects. And what I realized was that instead of using passion to be the thing that moves me forward, I had to use curiosity. For me, passion is like fireworks, it's like bam, it's beautiful, it's big, it's magnificent, and everyone is attracted to it. But it's also temporary in terms of you can not always be passionate, right? It's really hard, at least from my perspective, for most people to be constantly passionate about something. But you can always be curious. Curious for me is like light. Sometimes it will be the firework. Sometimes it can be a light bulb. It can be a candle. It can be the moon, or it can be the sun. It's different sources, but there's always curiosity. And the really cool thing about curiosity is that once you start following it, you eventually go down to the main passion or the main areas that you are interested in. But it gives you new insights that can help you like evolve the main core areas of your, work or whatever impact you want to create. So personally, I would say my main area or my main passion or the main impact I want to have in the world is focus on education, on developing youth and like helping young people find the thing that they want to work on and develop social businesses, social projects, and just create amazing impact, whatever place they are. But I'm not always just looking about education. I'm always trying to find my curiosity and try to find new things. And that's what I did for one of our latest projects that started 1 year ago, which is called AYF Global. AYF Global was about, the best thing that we have here in AYF is the community. Having 25 people from 19 countries, from architects, artists, engineers, educators, business people, a huge variety of people. It's amazing, like the crazy ideas you have, the crazy interactions you have. Is really inspiring. And my mentality, like, what if we can do this online? Thinking about pandemic is happening, nothing is moving, everyone is stuck, but the internet is kind of connecting us, all of us. So I came up with like the idea of like, okay, let's develop an online community to kind of like create this same sense of diverse community. Um, and expand, like create that feeling, but online for more people to create more impact, not only here in Awaji, but in all over the world to wherever people are involved or wherever people want to create impact. So that's how we started AWeb Global. We created a community 1 year ago, and I have no idea on how to do like online community or community building whatsoever. But through trial and error and doing some research online, I started like learning things, and we started creating impact. So, just for after 1 year, this is like a bit of what we've done. We got right now like over 1,300 members from 118 countries. And we've created different products, let's say. We've created ideathons, competitions, we created mentoring, and we created webinars from experts of Japan and abroad, to just talk about different topics. And even though the numbers look amazing, 1,000 people in less than a year, I still am not satisfied with what we like created so far, because I realized that even though the numbers are nice, interaction is not the best. But that's gonna be the next challenge, is how to increase the interaction, and that's where my curiosity is driving me. How to increase the interaction. Now, coming back to why I think curiosity is so cool is by learning about like trying to create this online community and learning how to do community building, I started learning things about what it takes to build communities, which is something that I can use in the fellowship that I'm currently trying to coordinate and that we're going to start in a month, and even the project that we want to create in Awaji. And one key thing that I learned about community is that you don't build communities. It's very intuitive, but it took me a long bit of trial and error and a lot of failure to realize that. And is communities build themselves naturally around products and about things you do. So we work so hard trying to build the community, to bring people together, to advertise it, that we neglected building the product itself, the competitions, the webinars. And that affected the results a bit and the interaction we get so far. And that's one of the key things that I will start working with the new batch of fellows that are going to come next month to improve it going forward, this online community. So that's basically, I went a bit fast, but this is basically what I wanted to share with you, which is those, I would say, yeah, 4 key things when you're doing sustainable work in terms of, or when you're doing anything sustainable that you want it to last long term, is diversity is good, but you need to get to know your people. Really take your time. Second, you also get to know the people that are going to impact. Listen more. Listen more, observe. Before you take action, take a minute to listen and observe. The third is once you start building stuff, when you start like creating an idea, contact people and people will support you because people believe in this and people will love to just help you out to make your mission happen. And the fourth is if you don't have a passion that you feel like drives you forward, follow your curiosity. Your curiosity will always help you, come up with new ideas and will eventually create a path that makes sense. So yeah, that's basically my the key aspects of my presentation. So please ask any questions that you have. I'll start. I think I have some questions here start, so I'll start answering those. How's Japan's view on youth development and other projects? Look, youth development is really key. In Japan, it's something that there's huge emphasis on. Especially if you look at things like even like teaching English. There's a program called JET program where they bring like native English speakers to come to every school in Japan so that kids learn native English, Japanese, English language, sorry. And there's a lot of investment in youth, and especially, right now, I think over 600,000 people, the population got reduced this year, or last year, sorry, by 600,000 people. So Japan is really invested in youth, and it really needs it for long-term impact. Because yeah, if not, they're screwed. They're screwed. You need the youth, and Japan is desperate for anything related to youth. And a lot of our projects is with universities and stuff. Everyone is like, there's a lot movement of like trying to bring more young people and create the best opportunities because they have a tough challenge ahead.
I don't know if you need me to help you with some of the questions or
Oh
you're
yeah,
okay.
no, you can.
I mean, I feel like you already answered this, but Deanna wanted to know, how do you get to manage working with diversity? What's your strategy?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I would say the two key things is first, defer judgment as much as possible. like I always grew up. I grew up in a war country, so I always grew up with the mentality of everyone wants to hurt you. But if you defer judgment, if you let people don't intend to cause bad things, and you just listen and you start try to take time to understand. That is the first key step for me. And the second is to create spaces to make sure that everyone share their views. So one thing that I learned that I started implementing is whenever I do brainstorming about anything, the first thing I do is make everyone write down individually their ideas. So once they write down their ideas, then I start asking people to share one by one. And this is really key because one thing that happens if you just do brainstorming and people just start shouting ideas is that the first idea dominates the whole conversation. Like, for example, I tell you right now, do not think of a purple elephant. All of you are thinking about a purple elephant. And if I start talking about, like, let's talk about animals or colors, you're going to be like trying probably big animals, or maybe, oh, where do the elephants live? Or, animals that live close to elephants, or colors close to purple. So one thing is trying to create spaces where people can really share their voice. So those will be the two key things: defer judgment and create spaces where people can share their voice.
I like the defer judgment that you shouldn't always presume that people are
Yeah.
trying to hurt you. Yeah, sometimes it's cultural differences. There's another question because you mentioned that you reached out to a couple of stakeholders. So, um, Nor wants to know, how do you gain the trust from stakeholders? Do you do it like long term, or how do you go about doing that?
It really it comes down to culture as well. But I would say two things. For example, in Japan, it takes time. If you want to earn the trust of people, it takes time, just naturally. But one thing I would say is always think about what you can do for them and not what they can do for you. That is something that I've noticed really key. One of my colleagues, he's a master networking guy. And what he always is doing is, how can I help you? How can I connect you? Who can I connect you to help you out in what you're doing right now? Even connecting people with other people that you might know, that is something to do. But really key is what you can do for them, even if it's something small. Or the second one is to build the
Thank
trust
you.
is,
Yeah, I think
oh,
you make a
just
good point.
one last thing would be like for another thing would be vulnerable. Especially if you're young, but young is like if you're talking to someone that is older than you, be vulnerable and ask them for like their experience and show that you want to learn. Like, everyone has an ego and everyone loves to talk about themselves. So if you talk to people and be like, hey, what your work you're doing is amazing, I saw you're doing this and this. I wanted to know, like, I just wanted to have 15-minute conversation with you just to understand a bit of what you're doing, and just and see like how I can become someone like you. That's also something that I would do. But key thing is just, yeah, what can you do for them?
This is like, I think you're right. It makes a lot of sense that just even connecting people, or how can you help people? It doesn't always have to be monetary. And speaking of, I see in one of the comments, someone wants to know, I assume this is in relation to all the different projects that are run, or in
Hmm.
relation to Awaji, or the projects within Awaji, or the was it the Younger Ambassador Program? Someone
Mhm.
wants to know, how does the social project gain revenue, or do you get funding for these projects?
Um, so right now, a lot of the projects we got funding from our parent company, but one of the key things that we're pushing is how to make it how to earn revenue yourself. The key thing for that, how to earn revenue, is what can you offer? There's multiple things, and especially there's this really good course that Acumen does about fundraising and just how to get funds for NGOs and NPOs. And the key, I think, key thing about revenue is to diversify as much as possible. If you only have one stakeholder and that stakeholder is gone, your impact is gone, right? So you need to have like multiple sources of revenue. That is for me key. What are sources of revenue? You can sell stuff, even if it's simple stuff. You can get revenue by that. I think like you in some of the other speakers work on something like that, right? So just you can sell stuff and just market it with the sustainability aspect, and you can get some revenue like that. If you're really NGO MPO where you cannot do revenue like that, you can apply for grants. There's a lot of places that you can apply for grants. You don't have to apply together. You can like work with other organizations and apply together for a grant. Uh, Other things is like donors. If you have big donors, you can create galas or big events where you can like get funding for the projects. Um, or even just get the local people involved, right? You can just do like a cake sale, a bake sale, things like that, or crowdfunding. I think it's just trying what works for the best for you, and just trying different things and seeing what works. Um, but the key is, yeah, making sure that for long term you have multiple sources.
So I see just another one that wants to know, like, because I assume it relates to stakeholders, but like,
Mm.
how do you know who to involve in your programs? How do you pick stakeholders? Because sometimes you just never know which is the right stakeholder to approach, or if your values align. So for you guys, how do you pick which program or who to involve in your
Mm.
program, even as participants? So from a stakeholder side, but like even for young people that you want to involve, how do you guys decide?
That is a really good question. Honestly, I think it comes down to, yeah, not rushing it. Really talking and making sure that you're exactly what you said, like that your values align, that you have like the same direction. Um, and that yeah, they can like provide the effort or the help that you want. It's tough. I'm not saying that's a really good question. I think there's no easy answer, but it's just like, again, just talking, listening to people, and seeing which is the best fit. We have a lot of applicants for the fellowship, even this year, and I had to interview like, I don't know, like over 100 people that were good candidates. But when I started talking, I realized, oh, maybe your focus is too much this, and we cannot offer this. It's just, I think, making sure like managing expectations, that the expectations of the stakeholder and your expectations are like the same. One thing I would say also is, you don't like, just because you talk to someone, you don't have to get them involved. If you think someone is really high quality, but maybe they cannot be directly involved, you can ask them for suggestions of, who else can you talk to. There's one person that I talked to that she's like really cool. She does really cool projects, but she's living in Tokyo, so she wouldn't be able to help us much. Um, and I talked to her. I got a lot of good feedback. And when I was launching this program, when we were launching the Young Ambassador program, I tried to talk to her, and she got advice. But I noticed like, she might not be able to get involved fully in the program. So I asked her like, hey, what are like one or two other people that I could talk to, that you think could help me out? And that's how you start like finding, oh, maybe talk to this person, or maybe talk to this. Um, but at the end, it's just, you need to really sit down. You have to have a really clear set of what are your expectations, what are your goals, What are your needs? What do you need from the stakeholder? And make sure that it fits. It's the right fit. That is really, really key.
That is solid advice. And in fact, really related to it, someone wants to know if you've ever if you've ever tried writing a blog or a book to share your experiences about community building.
Oh, no, I'm really bad at community building, honestly. I did think about writing a bit. I don't know. There's just so many resources out there on just if you write community building in YouTube, it's just full of things. It
So
just
you would never do it yourself? I think that's the question.
oh, I would I do. I think eventually I've written like short stories in the past. I just when my curiosity is back into writing, I'll probably do it. Um, yeah, and if I do it, I'll let you guys know somehow.
We look forward to it. And again, someone wants to know that what advice would you give to a young person who is interested in social entrepreneurship and wants to implement a sustainability project? So, like, what advice would you give to like young people who are
Yeah.
trying to do social projects in their communities?
For yeah, um, there's so many things I could tell someone like that. The first of all, I will applaud you and say like amazing. Honestly, it's tough work, but I respect and I applaud that you want to do something like this. Um, I would say two things. First is always remain humble in terms of what you want to learn from everyone. You have to, if you want to do social business, you have to be humble, not only to the big stakeholders and the donors or like the customers, the anyone that's going to bring the money, um, but also to the community. You know, the best source of information, you can read a lot of books and you can read a lot about the data collected by government and stuff. At the end of the day, the stories of the local people are going to be the one that matter the most. So you need to really listen and understand that the people know more than you. So being humble is really key. And the second thing is, especially for us young people, honestly, is patience. Patience. It takes to create change, it takes time. I could create things really fast. Boom, amazing, great big numbers, everything is happy, and then I cannot continue it. And that I love, we did a webinar on sustainability, and one of the guys said the key of sustainability is something that you can do long term. So that's what I would say you have to ask yourself. Can I do this thing long term? And if not, just, it doesn't matter, change it. And yeah, sorry, third and last thing I would say is very, very key. Fall in love with the problem that you want to solve, not with the solutions. The solutions might change. And the most successful people that I've seen and the most successful projects that I've seen here implemented um, are the people that, the same as the shopping street, they kept a flexible mind. If you obsess with the solution and you say like, this is what has to happen, and you force it, it's not going to work. But if you focus on the problem and how do I solve this, a solution will come. And then, in 5 years, the solution might not work, another solution will come. So that would be my three recommendations.
I think I really like your recommendation on focus on the problem. In fact, one of the things that we do during our program is that we have like a workshop with the Polytechnic University that's based in Milan, and they do like design thinking and co-design. And for like 2 weeks, they told us you need to focus on the problem, focus on the problem. The amount of like scratching and going back just to focus on the problem. So that's really really good advice. Um, and I don't know if you have questions for time for like a few more questions. Um, Someone wants to know, how do you bring your own unique cultural background to your work in Japan? And how can we encourage more cross national collaboration on sustainability initiatives?
Mm, that's
It's a
that's a
long
really good
question,
question.
but
No, no,
yeah.
that's a really good one. I think cross national, or how do I bring my own culture? It's really tough, right? One of the key things for me of why diversity works so well is not because we bring different cultures, it's because our stories are so completely different that we can bring more insights. It's a bigger, like the sum of our experience as a whole is more unique, and we can like find more inspiration in those experiences. So I think yeah, bringing your culture is just bringing your story, what you've learned in your past. Um, for me personally, it's tough. Like I don't know how I bring Colombian things um, into my work, but I know how I can bring Santiago's story and what I've learned in the past into my work. But how to? I think the second aspect of the question, which is really key, is how to like push more collaboration between like cross-national collaboration. I think is about just like creating spaces where people can feel comfortable sharing and talking about their problems. Um, and deferring judgment. Honestly, that is the key. Is like if people are gonna feel judged, they're not gonna open up, and they're not gonna share their true experiences or the true thing that the culture can bring. So you need to create spaces where people are comfortable enough to sharing who they are and what they know. Um, online methods are really good, but I think it's just also like you know celebrating heritage. Especially that's something that it was really interesting for me in the US was people were really proud of their heritage. And at first I didn't understand because in Colombia it's just like we're Colombians, we're all the same. Like everyone 4 generations in the past is still Colombians. But I talk to people and they're like, oh, half of my family is Irish, half of my is like from Jamaica and stuff like that. So on Sundays we do like we do like Irish sausage, but then on Sundays we do like Jamaican dishes, and I'm like, oh, that's interesting. But I think like keeping that spirit alive and sharing the culture in small ways is really key. I would say in terms of sustainability, is just sources of inspiration. Don't only stick to the traditional methods. Go and find what people locally are doing all around the world. The coolest innovations in terms of sustainability are done by people on the ground that have experienced the problems on the ground for all their lives, right? And so you just need to find the places that are similar and see what they did. So, for example, one thing that I learned is that Colombia is in the equator. So if I want to come up with solutions in Colombia, I can. I'm not talking about climate. I can look at countries that are also in the equator, but are not maybe Latin America. I can look at Africa or the Southeast Asia. Philippines. I think Philippines is surprisingly culturally close to a lot of Latin America. So I could know like, oh, what are they doing in terms of this aspect, and just copy. Like I think designers like I love I forgot who said it, but good designers copy, great designers steal. So you just find a good idea that is in another place and you steal it and you just localize it to your own environment. That is, I think, how you do it. You just talk to people. Hey, I saw that you're doing a really cool thing here. I think it might work here. Can I learn about what you're doing? no, we're using, we have Facebook, we have LinkedIn, we have TikTok, we have, Reddit. There's so many sources where you can just say like, find people for specific countries and just talk to them. And again, if you go with the mentality of, I'm here to learn, I'm humble, I have no idea, I just fascinated about what you do, people will talk to you and you will learn. And I think that's the best way to inspire. That's cross-national collaborations. Because in the future, those people, if they want to work with your own culture, they will remember you. This person was really cool, had really good attitude. Maybe I'll talk to them and we can exchange ideas.
I'm pretty sure the saying is not good designers steal. It just doesn't sound right. But I wanted to say, somebody also, because you're talking about communities, I think if a young person, like imagine that a young person wants to be involved in sustainability projects, how do they become part of a community like that? Where do they start? Like if I wanted to become part of this community that you're talking about that's taking action, how do I become part of that?
Okay. I don't know if I can. I'll share the link of our website. You can like subscribe here. I don't know if where I can share it. I don't know if I can share. But you can just Google
We
Awaju
will
Youth
share,
Federation.
yeah.
Oh,
We will
okay.
share. Yeah.
But honestly, apart from that, is just Google and Facebook and just find groups. Find groups. One other really good community. That's how I started funding. Taking classes. You can just find people that are similar experience and just ask them, do you belong to any community? Um, a really good community that I also recommend to people would be Acumen. Acumen is a really good source of information, and they have a really cool community as well. I'm trying to start a project with some people there to do some funding for social businesses as well, personal project. Um, so yeah, just Google and start talking to people, and every time you find someone, just you know ask them, who else can I talk to? And eventually you start joining groups. Um, you know, Similar to this, the TSA masters, just talk to the people here. They have Facebook, just join, see what they're doing. People that follow organizations like this always have the same mentality. So you can just keep talking to them. Hey, where can I follow? Where do you think of this? I need this help. And you'll start finding your community. And it's just finding the community that best fits for you, or multiple communities. Yeah.
Thank you for that answer, and thank you for joining us today. We really, really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule. I don't know if there's anything else that you would like to say. We've just shared information about your programs, and we wanted to let you know that we will be sending you a cool gift. It'll arrive in Japan, hopefully.
I really appreciate that. No, I think honestly, it's just, in terms of sustainability, just work towards it. Whatever you want to work on, just do it, and always keep your humble mind. Always talk to people, even if sometimes you don't like. Just push yourself out of your comfort zone, and slowly you'll start growing, and slowly you'll create an impact. Don't rush it. You'll get there.
Thank you, Santiago. So I'm going to release you. I'm sure you have things to do, young people to inspire. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me here today.
Okay. So now that I think it's about 11:04, and on our timetable, that means it is time for a coffee break. So we're gonna take a 15-minute coffee break. Be sure to join us after. So go grab your coffee. I don't drink coffee. It's water. Hydrate. Um, or have some tea if you're not into coffee like me. But we'll meet here in 15 minutes.
welcome back. I hope I'm audible. Thank you very much, guys, for waiting. We are now starting the second phase of our second day of the conference. I am very, very happy to introduce to you Marco Scheel. We will talk about sustainable entrepreneurship and specifically sustainable fashion. And to say a little bit about Marco, he is a very young entrepreneur from Germany, and he's making clothes from wool from sheeps, but he has some specific issues about this. I guess he will introduce to you when he's talking, and I'm a very big fan. So when I think it was 1 year ago, there was a video shared which went viral in Germany, where Marco is complaining that he is not able to get the authorization from the community to build where he wants to build so that he can produce more clothes. And he did it in a very funny way. And this is why it went viral. And yeah, since then, I'm a big fan of his company, Nordwolle. And Marco, I hope you're here. I can't see you yet, but I can. Wonderful. Nice to meet you, Marco.
Thanks, Mark. Nice to be here.
Yeah, moin. Greetings from Nordrhein-Westfalen. I'm a big
Moinsen.
fan, as I said, and it's so great to have you here. I would like to hear some words from you. How is it going right now? What are the improvements, but also in general, what is your maybe philosophy even when it comes to sustainable fashion and also for your startup?
Yeah. For that, I prepared a little presentation. Do you think I should start right away, or
How you like. I mean, we can maybe start a little bit talking about you. So I
okay?
know you studied engineering. Is that right?
Yes, I studied industrial engineering
Yeah.
at the Technical University of Berlin. I have a Master's of Science degree or something like that.
Already.
Yeah. And
Wonderful.
but already when I was studying, I already founded the company.
Okay.
We are still in kind of a startup phase, or people consider us being a startup. But actually, we were found, or I founded in 2013, which is a long time ago
Yeah, I
already.
see.
But we started slow, we evolved slowly. Later on, I'm going to talk a little about the reasons for that. We never did take a big loan, or we did not get subsidies or something like that. So we had to start small, but I think that it turned out the right way for us.
Yeah, that's very amazing. So we are also from master's program. We are studying in 4 different countries. So it's really cool to have you here, like also with similar experience, because we are mostly people who I guess want to make the world a better place, as I suppose you also did. And therefore, for me, you're a little bit of a role model, actually, that you, when you were so young, already were brave enough to found your own company and go through this slow process of evolution. Because if I may say, in Germany, I think we don't have such a culture of founding companies. Therefore, big respect to you. And
Thanks.
I guess we can start talking about your company if you like.
Yeah, all right. So I'm going to try. Wait a second. Share. I'm going to share the screen with you. And I hope. Wait a second. Okay, can you see? Can you see my screen? Okay, probably
Not
not.
yet.
Not
Not yet.
yet. Okay. Wait a second. I'm getting at it. Wait a second.
Hmm.
We're getting there. We're getting there. What is the problem? We need this maybe. Okay. So, okay, can you see it now?
Yes, lovely, perfect.
All right. So, yes. Okay, as you mentioned already, I am 32 years old. I'm from an island in the Baltic Sea. Actually, it's called Rügen. It's the biggest and arguably the most beautiful island as well in Germany. Yes, I love windsurfing, and that's kind of how the whole thing started, because I can remember one very specific initial moment when we had a session. I had a session with my friends, a surfing session, with great wind, great conditions, and after that we stood at the beach, and every single one of us was wearing like, of course, functional clothing, but it was all like plastic, the Gore-Tex shit and all that. And I had a friend, and he was a shepherd, and I knew that he would every year burn or dig into the ground his wool, his yearly production of wool. And at this specific moment, I thought, well, I would love to have a to have a functional jacket right now with a design so that I do not need to hide here with my friends at the beach, that would be produced in a fair way. Best would be in Germany, and it should be made of our own resource, like wool, because our sheep, they graze very close to the sea. So I thought they must be protected very well against the environmental issues here, and that is the same at the beach. So I thought, well, there is something. And then I went home and I Googled for this specific product, and I couldn't find it. And that's when everything started, But before I go into the path, or how we did evolve, I want to show you a little bit of the status quo, maybe, so that you get an idea what we are. Maybe somebody, or most of you guys, probably don't know me or our company, and so I just want to give you some data and an overview. Okay, so what we are doing is we are producing functional clothing and equipment, and for that we use wool that is produced by threatened sheep breeds. And by threatened, I mean threatened by extinction. Okay, so these are populations where the number of individuals are very low. Okay, there's only a small population left. So okay, so first of all, what we are doing is it's not a dream, not only a dream anymore. Like we evolved to a serious company. We are doing 5 million turnover per year. At least last year we did that, but we have a growth. We have 20. We do it with 20 employees, which is like a good relation, I would say. And as I mentioned earlier, I founded the company in 2013, which is some years ago. Okay, and we do, like, we have two major branches, I would say. First of all, okay, we are producing functional clothing for our own brand, and we're doing only direct sales. And secondly, we are a supplier. We supply components for other industries. For instance, for the shoe industry, or for the insulation packaging industry. Okay. All right. So now I told you, like, I gave you some numbers first, but maybe you don't really know. Okay, what does this mean in, like, real units or real numbers? What is that? We process almost 400,000 kilos of wool per year, and that because this question often comes, and I wanted to give the answer right away. That is about 130,000 sheep. Okay, that sounds very big, but I want to put it into relation again, because we in Germany we have 2 million sheep, and only north of the highway 2, which is like northern Germany, I would say, we produce more than 2,000 tons of wool per year. So there's a big way to go for us, and yeah, we are looking happily into our future. Okay. So I made a little bit of an overview of an agenda. What am I going to tell you? And first, of course, I'm going to tell you how we got started. What was the first steps that we took? Then I want to tell you what was our approach, for scaling up the business, or for getting this humble growth that we did over the last years. Yeah. Then again, from the introduction, I learned that you are maybe you are interested in how did we decide where to go with our business, or how to settle it down. And then I'm going to tell you something about our vision, because that's really important. And it was always the whole time, it was really important to be clear about the vision, so that all our employees would work into the same direction, And therefore, you need to either write it down, or you at least have to find actual words for it and say them, in a group. Okay. So when we started, or when I founded the company, as I already told you, there was no serious wool market in Europe. There was a big loss of knowledge about natural fibers, and by that there came a big loss of appreciation, and of course a loss of production capacity. This has to do with the big marketing budget push of synthetic fibers in the late 60s, or around the late 60s. All the plastic garbage came up, and people, in these neon color products, they wanted to dress, and they lost the knowledge, the first time the summit of the Mount Everest was climbed, it was not in a Gore-Tex jacket, it was in a woolen jacket, period. And this kind of knowledge was lost by the time we started, I would say. And the last players, the last men standing in the market, they were really this is roughly translated from Germany, because I didn't know better vocabulary. They were dusty traditionals, They didn't have e-commerce, or when if maybe they had a website, but it was from the 90s or something like that. It was really only the basic traditional players in the market. Yeah. And so, okay, we saw this situation, and so and I saw that my own demand, as I told you, my own needs could not be fulfilled by a product in the market. So I thought, okay, first I produce what I want, and see how it goes. Okay. And I did outsource everything. So the first big step was to create a network of producers that were still able to produce this kind of wool. And believe me, guys, it was not easy. Because again, those producers, of course, no website. You had to get an insight with people. You had to listen to the bush talk and everything to find those guys. Okay. All the time we did this, I founded the company with 3,000 euros. That's it. And so I'm not from my father is a plumber and my mother is a secretary. So my background is not an entrepreneurial background, and there was no initial capital I could invest. But I did not want to take very high risks here because I didn't know, the outcome. So from the first day on, we produced on demand, and of course we didn't sell it as a bug, but we sold it as a feature, because it is part of sustainability to produce strictly on demand and not having to shred last year's leftovers from season, from summer season or something like that. Then we tried to minimize returns by offering customizations to our customers. Like in big industry clothing, you like big but thin people never find a jacket that is really suitable for them. It's always going to be too wide, and small fat guys, they won't find something to wear either, because because the industry has to scale both at the same time. They have to scale the length of the jacket, and also the how do you say that, the width. Okay. We try to find another approach here. Sometimes it happens that a very tall guy has to take size S, size small, in our confection, because you choose the size with us only by your by your body fit, and then we adjust the length of the arms and the length of the jackets to your body. This really did minimize returns for us and minimized risk as well. Okay, so this was the first start. Okay, I was okay, imagine I was in Berlin. I was studying at that time, and I would cut the pieces of the jackets in my room, and and I would transport them with the public traffic to some tailors and all that. Okay, so this is really small first steps, and then we started to because it went good. The demand was there. People started buying. Numbers started to increase, and we had to develop and scale up the business. And so how did we reach people? We very early on developed a B2B branch to support or to supply big customers, and we found luckily we found big customers, or meaning partners with big range, and then we could use or we could participate from their range in social media and on Facebook and Instagram and all that, and they would push and push awareness for our topic as well. And then again, the next thing is we simply told what we are doing on TV. I have to say that German public TV really made my business. It's just fair to say that, because they are ongoing shooting documentations about our project. But you could say on one hand, yeah, okay, we did really took advantage of that. But on the other hand, what we're doing really is creating content. Many other companies that I do know quite well, they don't have that kind of content, and so they have to greenwash, or they really have to they really have headache finding socially fair and ecologically sustainable content. That's really, yeah, that's the thing. Then again, of course, the situation was really positive for us, because the fair fashion market was and is always growing. Being conscious about wearing ecologically sustainably produced clothes is like on the edge of mainstream. More and more people are getting this consciousness, and because we started quite early on, we were in a good a position to conquer some market share. And then there was a big decision we made, and it really helped us. And that was vertical integration, because we quickly started to build up our own sewing factory, to scale up our production, and to be flexible in the creative process and in the like iterative improvement of our products, And by doing that, we reached a much higher knowledge about our material, and that enabled us to produce much much higher performant products that would perform in a much better way. Yeah, sorry for the lack of my vocabulary. Okay. Yes, so that's what we were doing, and that's what how we tried to scale up the business. And then, as I already mentioned, we took a big step in 2019. We bought real estate to really get settled with our business. And there were some issues that we had, and there were some demands to that location. First of all, of course, I mean, Germany is well developed in infrastructure, but still there are some areas where you don't have a highway like next door, or 1 kilometer not more than 1 kilometer away, and you want to avoid those because you guys, and in the UK especially, that transport capacity is very big issue, and you don't, like, if you are in a rural area where there's no highway, you don't get a truck, you don't get a lorry. That's it. That's the situation. And we wanted to have the biggest producers of raw wool nearby. That means shepherds and the sheep. We wanted to have the sheep nearby so that we can learn about their issues, about their problems, about their needs. And we wanted to learn how we can improve the production of our raw material, and maybe by that even improve the quality of our raw material. And that really turned out a big advantage for us. Now then again, of course, you like in Germany, the real estate prices did rise in the very near past. But back then, in the rural area, right where we are now, where are we now? We are Teplitz is in Northwest Mecklenburg. That is, it is close to Rostock. Maybe some of you have heard of the city the small city Rostock. That's where we are now, and here we found a real estate market with low prices, where we could really start to invest and build something. And then again, from the start on, we wanted to develop a perspective for the area. We did not only, with our decision where to go, we did not only wanted to develop our own business, but also the area, because like in Germany, the regulations concerning the improvement of construction in the rural area, or reusing lost construction buildings in the rural area, the regulations that we have to abide, they are old, they are really outdated, I would say. They are from after Second World War. The law that was made back then tried to push people from the rural areas into the industrial centers to get up production, like in North Rhine-Westphalia, to really like to increase production in coal mining and all that. And they tried to, like in the rural area, they tried to bleed out the population. Oh no, I mean okay, I have to be sensitive here. They tried to bleed out the infrastructure so that people would leave the rural area, and so that they can could make could increase the efficiency of agriculture. So that's okay. That was the situation back then. But the situation back right now is very different. We have big or really high real estate bubbles in the urban areas, and so and young people, they don't anymore feel disconnected when they live in the rural area, because you have YouTube and Instagram and all that. You can feel the spirit of the time, even though you're living in the village. So many young guys like myself, we want to go back into, we want to, because in the rural area you can have a good work-life balance. We want to maybe have a small garden and be a little bit self-sustainable or whatever. So that's the situation, and the German law is not created according to this situation, and changes are very, very, like, they are. It's always it's just a pain in the ass. So we had very big problems with building authorities here. Although we didn't want to build anything new, everything that we wanted to use did already stand and was abandoned, and we just tried to do something here. And then again, in Germany, the tax law is you have to pay taxes directly to the town where you are, and like the communities in Germany are really struggling to keep up the service they have to provide, like in winter, or like to clean the playgrounds or whatever. It's really a big struggle. So they need business. We need business, or small or middle-sized businesses to come back to the rural area. We really need that. Okay, so now in my presentation, there might be one point where you are a little bit confused. What about immigration authorities? Yeah, in 2015, many people from Syria came to Germany, and this is a very big chance for us, or I see it as a very big chance, because Syria before the war was a big center, a very high developed industrial country, and a big, very modern centers for the industrial production of clothing were located in Syria. And so many highly trained people, or possible employees for us, came to Germany, and now we have very big problems with the immigration authority, because getting getting a refugee from Syria to work is a world of pain. In Germany, you have to we have one employee only doing the work with this authority shit. So that's why I was really struggling with this, and on TV I was putting it into words, and there was a video that went viral. And that's maybe because I'm talking to you guys right now. Okay, so one more aspect to the decision of our location is we wanted to find a different approach to this whole movement of work 2.0. It's a big thing right now in Germany. Many of our business customers try to approach I would say the general one I pointed out here on the left side, where they have a company structure. They often have a company structure without a headquarter, and all their employees have to work in home office and fully remote. Of course, that enables the company to get the cream of the employment market, because you are not limited to the local boundaries. You can search for people like all over Germany or even all over the world. But those kinds of companies, they only do marketing. They can only do marketing and sales, because you cannot use this kind of structure for a producing company. It's not possible. So this pushes, or this this pushes the offshoring of textile industry to Southeast Asia. And usually, of course, as I said, these companies, they have a very low vertical integration, and often they do even drop shipping. Okay, and you even if you want, you cannot you are not able to control the working conditions and all that. So we try to go with a more holistic approach. We as I mentioned, we build a central office in the rural area as a reference point for employees. We provide we provide jobs for the people, for people in our community that were, and those guys, all of them were unemployed before they came to us. We don't our marketing our head of marketing did study what he does, but all the other guys that are in our companies, we have everything here. We have we have a blacksmith, we have a gardener, several different professions, but what is the same for all of us is the passion for what we're doing, and we are creating this passion with our high vertical integration, because we do the whole value chain, the whole process, and that enables us to have a much better onboarding. When you come to our company and want to work with us, then you will work the first 3 months. You go from one resource to the next, from sewing, cutting, quilting. You will do everything in this onboarding process, and by that you will learn appreciation for the product. You will learn about all the advantages and the performance of the product, and you gain a much higher identification with our company and our mission. Now, nevertheless, digital co-working spaces are still possible even for us. Having a central office is not is not something that has to prevent you from letting your employees work in a home office if needed. For single dads or single mothers, it is very good to be flexible in time, and we happily try to provide this kind of structure. But what we did is we produced a feel good and feel appreciated atmosphere here, which means we have a kitchen and a splendid, a great cook, and he provides lunch for us, and we lunch all together. We have of course we have restrooms, but I mean we have we have also rooms where we can where we can recreate. And in the rural area, the local recreation areas are easy to it's easy to get there, because they are right outside of our company. And we always have a well-filled fridge with Bionade or Club Mate or whatever you want. Of course, that's so. But like this, with this kind of vertical integration, we can provide a really, we can control all our processes, and we can prove of the working conditions. And it's not possible there's no other way to really do it, because we are not a big fan of certificates like the GOTS certificate or the EVN Best certificate that we have in Germany here, because what they're trying to do is they try to in an intransparent market, they try to provide trust for the customers, But what we try to do is we try to get over this intransparency, by showing every step that we are doing. We have a YouTube channel, we have so we provide all the information that are needed to really approve of our deeds that we have, and that we are really doing everything for our vision. What is that vision? Now, it did not yet come into the whole reality, or it did not all come into reality right now, but we did write it down anyway. And this is what it is. We want to be worldwide the greatest expert for developing innovative solutions, like for all usages of personal insulation for mammals, like everywhere where wool can have a advantage above, or is superior wherever wool can be superior to a synthetic fiber, we want to put it into this usage. We want to find we want to develop a product for that. And then again, we want to increase our knowledge about wool types, and we only use wool, and that is really, we are really strict in that. We only use wool sources that are that are coming from extensive and ecological regenerative sources. So we take this really serious. We save this resource. Basically, we save this raw material, and and then we want to improve, iterative. We want to improve the sustainable and fair collaboration with our initial producers, meaning the shepherds, and we want to really understand what are their needs, what is their. We as a company, we are a shepherd as well. We have 30 sheep and female sheep and lambs, of course. So and we are doing this to get a deeper understanding of the ecological impact that shepherding does to our environment. And it's a big one. I mean, it would fill another presentation to really tell you how positive the sheep is for our environment. Okay, so that's what I wanted to tell you, and I want to really ask you to stay in the rural region and to develop it, because this can increase the quality of our lives in Northern and Central Europe. That's my deep belief. Okay, so I'm stopping this now.
Thank you very much, Marco. This was very insightful. So for our audience, you are very invited to ask questions. I will read some out and ask them to Marco. We already have some. So first of all, you talked a little bit about it already, but maybe specifically, is all the wool that you use produced in Germany, or where does the wool come from?
Yeah, it's a very recent development of our company that we also source our wool not only in Germany. Okay, and what is the reason for that? The reason for that is that before we were only producing clothes for the outerst layer, like really insulating, water repellent, functional clothing. And what we want to do now is we want to diversify our assortment a little bit, and we want to produce products for the second layer, something that you can wear on the skin. And you cannot do it with the northern wool, because the northern wool is a rough wool. We measure wool in the fineness of wool, or the softness of wool. We measure with the microns, and that means the how thick or thin is one single fiber. And the northern wool, like the wool in UK or England or Germany, the wool types that we have here, they are about 32 microns thick, okay, and like the high performance merino wool is 19 microns thin, okay. But then again, a thin fiber in relation to its volume has a big surface. So a thin fiber would suck up moisture. Like if you spill some water, you need a microfiber towel to dry the surface. Okay, it's the same effect. And that's why merino wool cannot produced in Northern Europe. It is not produced anywhere in the Northern Hemisphere. Actually, it comes from New Zealand, South Africa, South America, and Australia. And I think the high performance merino wool, the breeding of that merino wool is not according to animal welfare. Because it is, if this high performance breeding produces a suffering for the animal, by genetics already. Okay. But what we want to do is we want to use wool from we search for special types of wool that you can find in Europe, and we wanted to find a wool that you can wear on the skin, that would insulate very good, but that also would be extremely breathable, so that you can wear it also in summer as the outerst layer. And we found a wool that is very performant in all these parameters in Portugal, and we just recently explored this source. And it is a wool that there's no usage for it. It is dropped on land. How do you say that? Or, shepherds burn it, or they dig holes and bury the wool in those holes. And we try to go there, find these shepherds, talk to them, source the wool, and make great products. And we are going to launch our new collection. And wait a second, I think on the 21st. Yes, Saturday the 21st of May. There's going to be a new collection, and it's the first collection that is not containing only of German wool.
Okay,
but it's very new for us, and it's important for me to really emphasize that we don't like scale up and say, okay, there's a shitty vision, but we need to grow or something like that. No, we have an idealistic vision, and we are going the way according to that.
Yeah, so the addition is the wool from Portugal now, right?
Yeah.
Okay, lovely. Another question. Your company and your vision surely can be interpreted as a threat to the modern clothing consumerism, because we live in this fast fashion lifestyle world, right? And do you think that this is also a reason? Like, did you face institutional headwinds due to your economic model? Because your model is based on sufficiency, right? So this is a lovely question. Like, might this be one part of it? Like, you promote producing on demand, or making sure that everything is bought what you produced. But if you go to Zara or Primark or wherever, I don't know how many tons of clothes they have to burn every single week, maybe even.
Yeah, okay. So I think okay, first of all, this is a good question, okay? But then again, if you really think about it, this question is like it's not really that relevant, because the change that we try to make in the market is something that we think is necessary for a for to make human life on Earth sustain. So I would say, okay, yes, you are right. We are a threat to the status quo in a way, but the status quo is not, what is not something that we like, and it has to be it has to be changed some way. Now, if you think this through, I think it is not our company that has to change and be more commercial or something like that in order to produce growth, and in order to have the German economy grow. But I think there are more basic changes that we have to make in our society. I think, maybe we should be brave enough to think that the time we spend, or let's say the time, the hours that we work, maybe are not the only maybe are not the only measure to share our economical welfare. You know what I mean? Maybe there are different types of finding a solution for sharing what we produce as a nation, or as humans, on the planet.
Yeah, that's an important question. We also in some of our courses, actually in the master degree, talked about like what is the way to measure welfare, right? And I mean, definitely what you're doing is better than what Zara or whatever does, although they maybe create more, how's it called, GDP, because they sell more, right?
Yes, but on the other hand, what you have you must not forget the external effects that they produce and the cost that come with these external effects. Okay, somebody has to clean up the mess, and it's always the state that does it, and nobody measures
Sure.
that cost. And if you put it on the price of the Zara, if you would put this or internalize these costs into the pricing of Zara, you couldn't afford the clothes.
Totally. And there we have a lovely question which fits to that, talking about the concerns about the sustainability of natural wool, specifically talking about carbon emission. What do you think? Is this also sustainable from this point of view?
We did a lot of research and research in this matter. Okay, first of all, the shepherding is the least profitable branch of agriculture. Okay, so it is in Germany. Okay, in Germany and in the most of Europe. In England, the situation is a little bit different, but in Germany, this is the case. Okay, so shepherding only is done in areas where it's not able to do any other kind of agriculture. You cannot produce food, you cannot even produce wood on these. Like it's most of the time it's more, but wie übersetzt man das? More.
Swamp, I
Swamp.
guess.
Yeah, that's most of it. And the shepherding in these areas um, uh, make sure that the carbon, the CO2 that is saved or stocked in the soil, in the ground, really stays where it is. And even is improving this kind of stock. So if you see the whole process, and if you see this holistic, you can say that a woolen product is highly CO2 or climate negative, you have to say. I know there is issues about the sheep like farting, and the emission of methane,
Methane, yeah.
is a considerable problem. But I also have to say that when you like the production of wool for our for our products is a different one than the shepherds that produce meat. Okay, if they produce meat, they would feed their animals something that is not according to their digestion. They feed short chained carbon how do you say that? I don't know. They starch and so they feed them grain and all that to make them grow big in short amount of time, and that really hurts their digestion, and that leads to a much higher emission of methane.
So all these sheeps which are used for the wool, they are not being used for slaughter and for the
No.
meat?
No.
Oh, really?
It is. That's one of our biggest and most strict points in our vision. We only use in shepherding, in the production of sheep, you have four kinds of business models. Okay, you have the meat sheep, you have the wool high performance wool sheep like the merino sheep on the southern hemisphere. You have the milk sheep to produce feta or other kinds of cheeses, and then you have the what we call the land sheep. And the land sheep is used for producing and for making better the landscape. I don't know, to presume the landscape. Is that a sentence? I don't know.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, and so they don't, the shepherds that provide us with wool, they don't earn their money with meat, wool, or milk. They earn their money with subsidies. They get subsidies from the state because we as a society decided that they should get something for providing the service.
Okay, great, thank you. We still have a little bit of time for some more questions, so if the audience still has something to say, but there are still questions left. Maybe talking also a little bit about what happens in Australia. You talked about the merino sheep already. The practices which happens there, like I think it's called mulesing and dipping, right?
Yeah.
So this does
Okay,
not happen in Germany at all,
no,
or
no. There's no need for that. The consideration. Okay. What is the situation? The shepherds in that produce high performance merino wool. Okay, they want to increase their production per sheep. Okay, the wool grows on the skin, so they want a sheep with more skin. Okay, but they don't want to have a bigger sheep because a bigger sheep needs more space and it needs more food. So they grow small sheep with much skin, which means there has to be, how do you say that, labs, or and in many cases the skin at some point makes the sheep not being able to shit properly, and that's when they have to do the mulesing. They cut the skin in these areas away. So you see, this kind of thinking produces suffering by genetics already, not to mention the conditions that the sheep have to endure. And then again, you have all those sheep. When they get old, the wool gets a little bit coarser or a little bit more campy. So they are put away, and they are shipped on on an actual ship to Pakistan for meat after that, and the suffering they have to endure through that travel. I'm not sure. But I am sure that this is something we don't want to push, or we don't get along with this kind of production. So we don't have anything there.
So what do you think? Do you have a chance to promote this idea of wool clothes further? That maybe one day it could even become a challenger to the Gore-Tex and all these highly industrialized kind of plastics, or do you think this is maybe a very far future?
No, I don't think so. Right now we are doing we do double the turnover from last year, and this has been going for 2 years now, and I think it is we can see it again this year, that it's going to come up to double. So as I mentioned in my presentation, people get conscious about this. But then again, we have to really be careful, because we have to give like all the facts and don't be like tendencies in our argumentation, like what clothing is correct and which is not, because there are different ways of seeing the world, and seeing the human being on this planet, because we have this issue of veganism that is really sometimes I'm just saying, I think saying we don't want to kill animal for food, or we don't want animals to suffer for our well-being, is an ethical higher evolvement, or a big step, I would say, for the humankind. But we have to be careful that we don't get lost, or don't lose connection to nature, because if we only surround us by man-made processes and man-made products only, and everything is, there's a certain kind of wisdom that we could lose on that way.
I see. Maybe one last question. You talked a lot about the situation in Europe.
Mhm.
Do you know if like this traditional knowledge, how to produce this kind of sustainable clothes, do you think this is lost everywhere in the world, or is this a specific thing that happened in, I don't know, the Western Europe, or even the whole of
Yeah,
Europe?
of course, and like in Mongolia, for instance, people know, if you would sell them a Gore-Tex jacket, they wouldn't buy it, because they know what works and what does not work, because it is substantial to their survival. They wear coats, they mix camel hair with the cashmere fleece. So what they are trying to do, and which works for our products, by the way, as well, is like everywhere in natural processes, you can see that a higher diversity stabilizes and a system and increases its performance. And it's the same with wool. You need a mixture of different types of wool to get you need a diversity in fibers in your material to increase its performance, and in other regions of the world, not maybe in regions that are not as developed as the Western world, people know about that. Yes, of course. So it's not lost, but in Germany before Second World War, we had a big industry that would be aware of this, and would provide proper clothing, um, and products for beds, and products for living in housing, for everything, out of natural fibers. So they sort of knew about the advantages, and on the other hand, also they knew about the disadvantages of the upcoming synthetic fibers.
Great. Thank you so much. I'm so happy that you have been our guest.
It was
We
great.
will definitely send you a small present as a surprise for you. So I
Well, it's
hope
not
you can.
necessary, but nice.
Yeah, then thank you again for your time. It was very insightful, at least for me. I hope the audience sees it the same. But yeah, whenever the stream stays on YouTube, so whenever you can rewatch it as you like.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you, Marco.
Thank you.
It was
Thank
a
you.
pleasure.
Nice that you had me. It was great being here. Bye bye, Mark.
Bye bye. Okay, so that was Marco. Now we are going to our fifth part. We'll have a workshop session by Dermo from the National Youth Council of Ireland now. And I'm very happy that he is already here. And maybe to say a little bit about it, we are having the European Year of Youth. So it's great to now focus a little bit about the engagement of young people. And I think this might be interesting for many of us because we already heard what Marco did, like going into the entrepreneurship direction and create a product which is really sustainable. But now we will hear something about engagement and social activity. Thank you, Dermot, for joining us today. I hope you can hear me. And yeah,
Yes, Mark, I can hear you. I hope you can hear me.
wonderful. Yeah, everything works perfectly. So, Dermot, you're from the Youth Council, and would you like to talk a little bit about what the Youth Council does and what is the impact you have?
Yes, and the first thing I'll say, Mark, is that as it's really clear to everybody who is tuned in, I am not young. So while I am here to represent the National Youth Council, I am not representing the youth, but I'm very privileged because I get to spend a lot of really quality time with young people. And I have a big responsibility in my role in the National Youth Council to support young people who do have opinions, who do have motivation to get involved in pursuing change, to expressing their opinions, to exploring what it means to be young in the world today. So hopefully I will honor the young people that I work with. But just to give you a sense of the National Youth Council, there are national youth councils in most countries. They kind of operate maybe a little bit differently at times, but in Ireland, our National Youth Council is kind of like an umbrella organization for youth work providers, which means that we have member organizations who provide youth work services to young people in lots of different shapes and sizes. And our job in the National Youth Council is to support them in delivering the best quality work that they can, to support them to maybe give feedback up the chain into government departments about what their needs are, what the issues are for young people, how they need to be supported. And the other thing that the National Youth Council has is that within the team there are different departments, and they would then shine a light and focus on different important elements of, again, what it means to be a young person. So we would have the health department, we would have the arts department, global youth work development education department, we have a STEAM department. So there's different, and the department that I'm going to talk about today is the international department, which particularly looks at participation and engagement of young people. So it's a really important organization, and it's a huge honor for all of us to work there or to be involved, and to really make sure that we amplify the voices of young people in all the work that we do.
Great, great. So what is like the core of the work of the Youth Council in Ireland, and maybe what are different to other councils? What is your experience about that?
Yeah, so I think sometimes the structures are dependent on the national structure for youth work in different countries. So the youth council then will play its role according to the need, and then also it will play its role according to how it grows and develops. So our organization has grown and developed by looking at what is needed in the youth work sector, and then to try to provide that. So, like that in our department, the international department, we would be looking outwards at the European Union, for example, and the European Youth Forum, and wondering what's happening in different parts of Europe with young people and with other youth councils, and is there a synergy that's available between what are young people saying in Germany, or in Italy, or wherever, Norway, Finland, and what are they saying in Ireland? And is there something about how we combine them? So today I'm going to talk a little bit about how we have dialogue across Europe, and how that extends to the globe as well, in terms of what is there something to be said for the voice of young people in Ireland and the voices of young people in other parts of the world? And is there power to be generated by combining them or facilitating spaces where they can share their opinions or generate ideas together? And I know even earlier on today, we saw the example of Japan, where young people gathered in a place from all different parts, and the energy around and the positivity around that and the potential as well, really came through quite strongly. So in a similar way, we like to do that. But I suppose that one really critical element of what we do is we look also at the political landscape, and we wonder about where does the youth voice land in the political world in terms of policy and legislation and national frameworks and EU frameworks? And is there, we might believe and say that the voice of young people has value there, but we also have to find ways to channel it in, and to support young people to have an experience of that is valid, that is authentic, has meaning and purpose, and the potential to change things. So that's a really exciting part of my job, which again I'm going to share a little bit about the how of that today, hopefully, and I really hope it kind of resonates with people. It may be in ways where they will see, yes, we do that here also, wherever people are in the world, or hopefully on some level they might think, oh, that's interesting. I never thought about doing it that way. One thing that's really important for us is the how part, because if you're not creative, dynamic, innovative, and willing to share spaces with young people and support them to shape how you work, then sometimes you might pitch it in a way that is lost, and then we miss the opportunities. So yeah, it's really exciting work, but also there's always layers of challenge, and I think for me it's important that a young person who engages with us is able to see the journey of their contributions, and to track that even if they want to.
Thank you very much for this introduction. So I would leave the stage to you now. If the audience has questions, we can discuss them after the workshop. So whenever, just comment below the video on Facebook or YouTube or wherever you're watching us, and then I will come back later. So
Perfect.
The floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark. So I'm very aware as well that it's the last session. So do I feel some pressure? Maybe a little bit. People who know me and get to spend time with me also will have experience of the fact that I often make jokes that nobody laughs at, and that's a thing. So the fact that I can't see any of the audience means that I'm going to just tell myself that my jokes are really landing, and that that my commentary is, that my wisdom is really lighting fires in people's minds around the world. And that's what will keep me going. But I really hope I can keep your attention. And what I'll say before I start as well is, if you do happen to, maybe if you're on a laptop or a device and you have another device, or you can open up a tab, I'm going to be doing a little bit of interactive stuff today, in particular a Menti on Mentimeter. So just to show you how we engage with young people in some of the work that we do. So I'll invite you to also engage in some questions that I'm going to put into the mix today, and hopefully people will be in a position to respond and react, and we'll kind of share how that goes. I also have some slides, so I'm going to pull them up now and see hopefully that they are available. One second. So yeah, so just some slides, just to frame it for you and hopefully help people to follow the journey of the stories that I'm going to share. We would have, so there's logos. You'll see a lot of times in organizations that work in partnership with other organizations, or that see a synergy with someone else who's acting in the landscape. For us, it's important to maintain the connection between some of the other organizations or actors in the sector. So, as it says, this year is the European Year of Youth, which is it's a good way to kind of pull the youth agenda into center stage. And for us, there's an opportunity to make the most of that. So that's something that we really are committed to this year. As you can see on the slide, it also says EUYD Cycle 9. You'll see there's a lot of acronyms in the world of youth work, but that's EU Youth Dialogue Cycle 9. So that's something you might hold in your mind, and I'll explain it as we flow. But that's a structure that invites particularly the member states of the EU to have engagement with young people about issues that are important. But I'll talk about that a little bit later on. And then what do we have in the logos? We have the National Youth Council of Ireland, the 25% project. So people may have come across that. It's worth Googling it, but that was a particular project that evolved out of the fact that there was a conference on the future of Europe happening. And it was really about looking at the shape and ambition of Europe into the future. And wisely, it was decided that the voices of young people had a really important part to play in that. So the 25% project emerged as a structure that would support young people to, again, get together, think about their ideas, their notions, their ambitions, their vision for the future of Europe, and to channel that into spaces where decision makers are operating. So that's been working really well, and we would see a real synergy with our work in Young Voices EU Youth Dialogue with the 25% project. You'll also see we're connected with the Erasmus Plus program, again, that we would channel in and out of the Erasmus Plus program as a way of making sure that, well, first and foremost, they would provide funding for some of our actions. So that's important when you are trying to organize activities for young people, and I'll be sharing how we do that. But one fundamental part of that is, if we want all young people to feel that they are welcome and invited, then we must think about what's needed to ensure that we can do that. So we would be really strong on, if a young person needs to travel from another part of Ireland to our event in Dublin City, in the capital, then how do we support them to get there? So we would get funding, and then where are we going to do it? And will we give people food on the day? Questions like this may seem kind of small time, but for us they're important because it's part of a package of invitation. So the Erasmus Plus program would support us in terms of funding for some of the projects that we would do. And also sometimes the young people who are part of Young Voices, they will make their application into the Erasmus Plus program to run their own events and their own activities, which is brilliant, because it gives a sense of how young people can empower themselves to pursue their own ideas and agendas. And then we have the department logo. So formally in Ireland, we would be supported by the relevant department that has the youth in its title, and we see that as a partnership also, which is really important. And there's a flow back and forth between us and them. And more importantly, it is our experience, and very positive experience, that young people also are part of that channel in and connection, so that the Minister for Youth might say, well, what's happening in EU Youth Dialogue at the moment? come in and tell me. And it's not Dermot that goes in to tell anybody. It's the young people from the Young Voices project that will go in and explain from their point of view, which is really important. This is an important, so when we think about the way that we work with young people, and how we, again, manage the spaces, because for us, it's really important to think about the spaces that we work in, and how we support young people to engage and participate. And this is a poem. So people might imagine that when they are attending events or youth events, and that someone writes up a contract of how we will work together, and you might do it on a flip chart and talk about kind of the principles of how we will work together. This is a poem that we would use with young people, and when we operate in group spaces, just to frame the space, because that's so important for us. And this is Mickey Scott Bay Jones is an activist and a poet, amongst other things, from the United States. And people, I'll read it really quickly, even to give people a sense of how important it is for us in terms of creating spaces for young people. And when we think about all of the work of this conference and the organizers and the people that they've chosen to speak to the issues, there is something about how we have a sustainable spaces for linking and working with young people, and how we form them and frame them in ways that both give us the space to challenge each other and challenge the narratives or challenge the realities out there, but are also spaces of comfort. So this poem is really lovely. It kind of, as it says, together we will create a brave space, because there's no such thing as a safe space. We exist in the real world. We all carry scars. We have all caused wounds. In this space, we seek to turn down the volume of the outside world. We amplify voices that fight to be heard elsewhere. We call each other to more truth and love. We have the right to start somewhere and continue to grow. We have the responsibility to examine what we think we know. We will not be perfect. This space will not be perfect. It will not always be what we wish it to be, but it will be our brave space together, and we will work on it side by side. And I use this in most groups when I'm working with young people, and I really love, and maybe people can put in the comments, does it resonate with you? Is it something that that you can imagine when you're in certain spaces, and when you're working in groups? What stands out for you, or what jumps out from the poem for you? For me, my favorite line, and it changes every now and then, but I love, and I think it's really relevant to this conference as well, and the challenge we face when we're thinking about sustainable futures. We have the right to start somewhere and continue to grow. And I think that is a really interesting line and a nice challenge, because, and it's something I'm going to talk about today, is that if I invite young people to come together, it's important for me to recognize that everyone in the room has the right to start somewhere. I cannot expect everybody to be on the same level as me, on the same level as each other, to understand all the concepts that are going to be presented. So when we see that the space is somewhere that we can operate together, then we can make it brave as it needs to be. And if we're mindful and compassionate and connected, then the bravery isn't about outside of the comfort zone. It's about how we stretch a little bit. But I just wanted to share that as an example of something that we would use. So again, just to frame the Young Voices movement and how it works, there's a thing called flow, a word that we would use all the time, because it has its own momentum, and it's always in flow, and that's about kind of pulling in the opportunities to talk about important issues, the opportunities to gather together, whether it's online or in physical spaces. So flow is a word that we would use all the time. And you can see in the graphic there also that there's a logo, that the mission statement that was created by the young people. And this is something as well that they created themselves, and the words are chosen specifically by young people. So at the top it says, create a better future by empowering young people to influence decision making. So there's good intention there, which is really important. At the left-hand side, it says connect, and the young people, when they were creating this logo, they felt that connection was important. And again, a conference like this is really connecting across the world from what I've seen over the last couple of days. But it's also, for us, it's about connecting young people with their communities, and then connecting young people with decision makers, and that connection flows. And I'm sure some of the conversations emerging out of this conference are also when I meet young people, their concept of community is something that it's not just the people who live outside your door. People are part of communities that are global, as well as local. And that's really interesting. And young people can really teach us a lot about how they hold that in their minds in a positive way. And then the actions, the kind of how part of how they see young voices having an impact. They would say the 5 elements for them are connect and do that as an action. So go and seek connection. Empower, so that's again about supporting people to grow their capacity and grow their skills, their competences, so that they can use their power and do that in a collective way. Represent is an important word for the young people that I spend time with, because they are representing themselves, they are representing the people who are together in a space, and they're also representing at times the voices that might not be in the space, but they are connected to. Change is an important word in terms of the action, so they're pursuing change as part of their connection to young voices, and then making a difference. So having that purpose is really important to the young people that I work with. And then if we were to break it down, there's kind of 4 ways that I would describe how we work. So there's the invitation is an important expression, because when we gather with young people, it's my job to put out an invitation and to frame that in a way that says, I would like you to come and join us, and you are welcome and worthy, and what you have to say is important. And that invitation will determine whether someone will come or not, or ask for more information. A diverse group is something that, again, and it was spoken about today, is a strength. So we are striving for our group to be diverse. When I look across, let's say, even Ireland, the Ireland of today, I should be able to look across the Ireland of today and see its diversity, and then look across the room of young people that I'm working with and see that the diversity of Ireland today is mirrored in the group that's in front of me. And if it isn't, that's something we strive to overcome. A collective is something about how we think about sometimes you look across the world and young people would see that there's lots of individuals get the spotlight, and they get put on pedestals, or they get their voice gets amplified above others, and they are the go-to voice of a generation or voice of a movement. For us, we try to give them a sense that the collective is important, and a collective means that together we'll make a difference. Together, our energy will have an impact. So that's really, really important and interesting, because it would be untrue of me to say that I don't meet people who are striving for that individual spotlight, or they're caught up in a sense of wanting to be famous, or wanting to be in a position of hierarchy. So we always try to give this collective sense, and then stories of change is really important for us also, because the young people that come to our spaces, they're doing things in their own communities also, and then what we do together represents a story, and for us it's about how do we share that, where do we share that, what do we want to provoke, do we want to inspire, do we want to motivate? So in all the work that we do, it's really important that we don't get caught up in an echo chamber or a bubble of thinking that we're great and we're doing amazing stuff. What are we doing with our achievements, and how are we sharing the stories of those, and what are we hoping will be the impact of those stories? So that's really, really important for us. This is a graphic just to show the flow, so and how we operate in the spaces where decision makers sit, where change making might happen, and we would share this with the young people to kind of honor them, to say that this is Young Voices is here in this graphic, and it is connected with the green arrow into the National Youth Council of Ireland. We are connected in there. There's a link between the two. We also are connected with the orange arrows to the government department, and that's important to recognize that. And the government department connects into us, and that's also important. It's not just one-way traffic. The blue arrows then are to the European Union flag, is that Young Voices has a particular opportunity through EU Youth Dialogue to channel the voice of young people into that space. So that's also relevant to us. And then what Europe offers kind of in return or in parallel or as a part of this package is the Erasmus Plus program. It's funded through the European Union. Our national agency is called Lergas, and they provide funding to us and their own expertise and insight. So it's for us to try and show that there's movement happening, and that it's not just the isolated voice of young people coming together and speaking about their issues. For us, they must travel somewhere, and we must track the journey of that, and have an intentionality behind it, so that maybe it will be part of change making. This is a complex one, but just to show you as well that we work on our own story in terms of, and we're very, very lucky to have, and it's something I would say to groups, maybe people know this already, but having a creative dimension to how you explain yourself or how you share the flow of your work is a real asset. So we would kind of try to work on explaining ourselves through graphics, and this is like an ecosystem graphic. So we kind of see that our work operates like an ecosystem where people come in, there are different elements to it, it flows and moves, there is growth, and there are different moving parts, and throughout the whole flow of our ecosystem is this engage, connect, empower, and change sits in there as well. And it's something, again, I won't zoom in and labor on it, but just to give you again a flavor, that there are different actors, there are different moving parts, but that there's a flow involved, which is really important for us. What messages do we send about change to young people? And this is important because I'm sure people in the room today can imagine, we can picture youth protests, for example. We can, climate strikes and an unbelievable impact that they have had. But for us, it's also about, yes, you're out on the streets and you're expressing yourself in that space, but also you need to come into the rooms and think about how the change is going to manifest and how we're going to pursue the agendas that are coming out of the strikes or coming out of the conversations that young people are having amongst themselves. And we would, some of the messaging that we would send is about, and these are not our messages, they're out there, but we try to kind of retransmit them. The world is changed by your example, not by your opinion. And I think we live in a world of opinions, and the platforms that are available to us in terms of social media are always asking us for our opinions, but then platforms don't often give us a space to dig down into our opinions and to share them, and even to share the example of how we live our opinions or how we pursue those opinions. So example is an important part of the messaging that we would transmit to young people. And then the other one, I like it a lot. It says, if you change nothing, then nothing will change. And that's about, if we sit back and, the organizers of this conference, if they didn't do this conference, then nothing would emerge from the fact that this conference has happened. If the course wasn't developed, that they're the first group to participate in, then the ambition of that course would never be realized. So often, we can, in Ireland, we have an expression, sitting on the fence. So if you're sitting on the fence, then you're not participating, you're just watching. And maybe the people sitting on the fence have opinions, but if you're not part of change, then change won't happen. And just to give you a sense of the participation part of how we work, and there's some graphics there. There's a lovely graphic here. You might not see it on the screen if it's not big enough, but in terms of inclusion, we would have, there's a couple of young people there who are from the deaf community. So they had used sign language, and we brought an interpreter in so that they could fully participate in our activities. And it was really amazing. And I've very strong memories of the times when they were at our events, whereby they sit in a round table with other young people from different parts of Ireland. And then they're learning that I can engage with someone if the supports are there, such as an interpreter. And to have that experience is also a strength, because young people then, they're going out to their friends or their families afterwards and saying, today we engaged in a space where we had people who were from this background or who had this lived experience, and they then that impacts on them. And not only do we get to talk about issues that are separate, but we also get to spend time with young people who themselves are growing because of the experiences that we're creating. We have a group of young people there at the European Parliament, so bringing them into those spaces and trying to facilitate engagement with decision makers at that level. And then we would create our own content in terms of the messaging, so that it's creative and that other young people are also, it can resonate with them, or it can have an impact, or it can be even consumed outside of the spaces that we're in. There's a lovely quote there. I began to be able to use my voice rather than hiding away or not being strategic with my voice. And then a really important message that we would use a lot is, what you know matters, but who we are matters more. So we can, all the knowledge, and again, we see some of the examples over the last 2 days, that the knowledge is important, but in its own right, it'll just live here in our neocortex. If it connects in with the limbic system, and then, or we have an expression, head, heart, and hands, that what's in our head is important, but it's how that then impacts on who we are and how it lands in our heart, and then what do we do with that? Because who we are is what people experience. What we know lives inside our minds until we have an opportunity to share that, but the who we are part is really important for us. Another example, working with young people from the traveling community in Ireland, again, making sure that those type of voices that might be considered seldom heard, that they're also brought into the spaces. Or young people, Daniel there is a wheelchair user, and for him to be, and he is also a podcaster, and he was our first wheelchair user to be a delegate at the EU Youth Conference. So when you think about that, might again sound, oh yeah, of course a wheelchair user can go to the EU Youth Conference, of course. But when we thought about it, and when he said, I would like to do that, then for us it was like, amazing. So who's hosting? Austria. So Austria, when you're hosting the conference, we would like Daniel to go to the conference. What can you do about that? And then they said, oh, okay, so that's what do we need to do about that? So a whole dialogue then opened up about Daniel, what were his needs? How would they respond to them? And he had an unbelievable experience. And again, that's about, what do we need to do to ensure participation? It's not just about, we will do this and then tick a box. It's about, how do we make it work so that it's, again, meaningful and positive and genuine for the person that has the experience. Another quote there, I've become aware that I am in a position where I can speak up for those who can't speak up for themselves. And again, that's really powerful, that someone might get that sense while they're in their spaces and then use it to an advantage. And even the fact that people think that way is really, really positive for us. The 3 slides I'm going to share, which are kind of are nicely touching on, again, how we imagine our work in this space. And when we think about sustainable development, and even the previous speaker talking about how we work and see the land and nature and connections with that. So we would see our work in these 3 dimensions. So horticulture, so that's the science and art of growing, nurturing, caring, and repairing. And we can imagine that in terms of the land, but it's the same for people. So the work that we do with young people is about growing, it's about nurturing, it's about caring and repairing, because at every moment that they are with us, and whatever has happened in between the experiences, if we can nurture and play a role in the growth of young people, the growth of their ideas, the opportunities for them to care about the world, care about the future, care about each other. And then there are times when we work with young people who have experienced harm, for whom the world causes harm, and maybe some of the policies that are implemented are causing that harm. So we also create spaces where we can explore, how do we repair the harm? Because we can't just plow ahead with change and sustainable future without repairing. Alchemy, again, another word that you probably wouldn't expect to hear in the youth workspace, or maybe not even in the sustainable development space, but for us, alchemy is a lovely word that talks about, the science and art of change, when things get mixed together, when we bring elements together, then what can happen? What's the potential for that? For us, the potential is change, transformation, exploration. When we mix these two, when we bring a group of young people into a space with a group of policymakers, what's going to happen there? For us, we hope that change will happen or transformation, but if nothing else, it's an exploration and it's worthwhile. And also, there's a discovery part. We have to find ways. So again, the previous speaker discovered on some level that we are losing the art of how to use wool to create clothing. That's being lost. So to discover a new way of doing that, or to reignite an interest in that, there's some alchemy in the mix. And then the third way for us that's important is wayfinding, finding your way. And for us, that's about the science and art of direction. And again, when we can think about the future as this linear direction that is unavoidable. It's there, it's the future. We have to, every day we end up in the future, but there are options in terms of the directions we might take. And that's what, again, people, the course, all the participants on this course that I've heard of the last couple of days, and all the diverse backgrounds and interests, but everyone in their own way is looking for the direction we need to pursue in order for things to be better for everyone. Wayfinding is about choices. It's about imagining a destination, and I'm going to do a little bit about that in a while with you, because we must imagine a destination in order to pursue it. And maybe we must imagine multiple destinations so that we can adapt as we need to. And then accessibility is important because, again, for us, you can find your way, but is everyone able to find their way equally? And what do we need to do to ensure that it's accessible, that the way that we choose is accessible for everyone? And that's a really healthy challenge. And sometimes we fail, and we must hold and recognize the failure and then move forward. So words have power. And I'm going to give an example of this is something, so on the Mentimeter, so hopefully if you have a device, or you can open up a tab, you can go to menti.com and put in the code 804-94872, and there'll be a question there asking you, what are the biggest issues in the world right now? And I'd like you to do one-word answers. And in the last 7 days, I've asked this question to 2 different groups, and I'm going to show you what came back from them. And hopefully we'll get a sense of from you what's coming back from you, and hopefully it'll work. I can see some words popping in, but I'll bring it up on screen to show you as well how it looks. But this is, again, we would bring young people together, and you think about how do we engage, or what's the start point? And sometimes it's about giving them an opportunity to think, to send out their senses out there and then pull them back in. But it's really important to for us to take stock of when a young person looks out into the world today, and sometimes it's that invitation to pause. Take a moment, because we, again, live in an existence where it's doing. But we invite young people to just pause, take stock, look around. What are the biggest issues in the world right now? If you could just do it in 3 words, what 3 words would come to your mind? And that gives us then an opportunity to see where they're at, and to then have a sense of their start point. And then with them, and when we look at what comes back from them, then we start seeing what directions are available and what are we going to do? How do we pursue that? We also might think of what we need to park, and what can we do something about that right now, or do we just hold it in our minds and in our hearts? But because sometimes it's about prioritizing, and that's also a challenge. I'll give you a quick look at what's coming up in the Menti before I move on. So I'll stop sharing this one. So this is what's coming from this group of people. So again, a diverse group from different parts of the world. And there's I don't know if people have heard this quote before, but it's a really interesting one for me, challenging at times. There's a quote that says, you can only see the world from where you're standing. And that's something that reminds me of, that's how I check myself sometimes, is that from where I'm standing, how do I see the world? And then do I take that and then think about how do others see the world? And do I have space to appreciate that someone else sees the world from a different standpoint? And how do we connect? Do I have to fight for my stance as being the right one, or am I open to the possibility that someone else sees it slightly differently? And is there a connection between us where we can find common ground, or a synergy even, that when we combine how we see the world, a better picture emerges? Really powerful stuff here. Climate change is front and center. Misinformation, climate crisis, human rights, global warming, lack of empathy is something that's a huge one for me. It's something I spend a lot of time working on. And if we think about play that out, when the absence of empathy has a profound impact on how the directions we might take. Scarcity, political polarization, biodiversity, huge issue. Selfishness, food security, lack of love. Again, it might sound corny, but without it, I don't know how us as a species can move forward and do the healing that's required. Inequality. So really brilliant examples, and appreciate people doing overconsumption. Again, we can't consume ourselves to a sustainable future, as we've heard over the last couple of days. Well, thanks for doing that. Well, I might look again later on and see what else has come up from it. I'm going to go back into, and I'll show you what came up from the groups of young people. So I met with a group of young people. Do you want to jump in, Mark?
Oh no, I'm just curious, like what the other people said, what, and maybe also listening, what is your opinion on this question?
Put me on the spot. I'll play it. I'll show you. So I've got I took two screenshots of the two groups that I've worked with in the last week. So one of them was a group of young people who are all teenagers in school from one district in my area, and it's called Wicklow in Ireland. So I think theirs is the first one. Let me just. So this is what they said. And this is something that, again, we would do every year. We gather a group of students together in our county, and we discuss youth issues. But this is so we do a comparative. So people could probably imagine the common features that will come up all the time. One that has never come up in the last 3 years is the word war. So when we think about when we pause and look around the world, and war is at the center of this word cloud, then it tells us that that young people are noticing and they recognize that it's a big issue. We also have mental health, climate change, racism, discrimination, bullying, abortion, which is also a big issue. And it tells me something about how they're consuming their news and what's happening. It's not a big issue in Ireland, but it's a big issue in the United States at the moment, and it's featuring in the narratives and news around what's happening in that country, the changes that are happening. So young people are consuming that content, which tells me that they have a global view and that they are consuming things at a global level. I love the one that says, man's stupidity is a big issue in the world today. Hard to disagree with that as well. And then I'll show you the next one, which is this is a particular group of ethnic minority youth that I spent the day with on Saturday. So all in Ireland, but all coming from different backgrounds across the world and different contexts in terms of some of them asylum seekers, refugees, some migrants, some born in Ireland, but all from ethnic minority background. And this is their picture of the world, which was one day after the other group. So the other group was Friday and this group was Saturday. And again, we have climate change is big there, poverty, which is very much related and relatable, climate in terms of SDGs, racism, inequality, global warming. And you can see, when we do word clouds, that if people use a different word or a different way of framing the word, it doesn't combine. But when the same word is typed in multiple times, the word is bigger in the word cloud. So the bigger the word, the more people have expressed that. But when you look around, you also see the related words: wealth inequality, income disparity, um, apathy towards the global experience, which is interesting, unsustainable energy, fake news, equality. So, for me, it's really interesting because it then gives me something to then work with young people upon. That if they are saying that this is an important issue, then it gives a mandate for what we will do next, and how we pursue them. And that's important, because I could have my, and I know you asked me, put me on the spot, Mark, about what I think. And yes, I should be validated for what I think and believe in my own right. But in my role, it's really not about what Dermot thinks or believes, as much as it is about how does Dermot then take this stuff and work with young people, um, in order to try and pursue change. And I suppose, yeah, I would say, like, from my point of view and all the work that I do, and a lot of my work is with vulnerable people, with in advocacy and in education. But I would say it's a sustainable future is the biggest issue that I lose sleep over. And I have children myself, so when I think about the future, and I'm really interested in the future, and but when I think about the future, the how it will be for my children and their children is something that, yeah, that doesn't sit so comfortably with me these days. So a couple more slides, maybe I'll move on, unless you want to.
No, very interesting. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe one more question. How did you choose these groups, or what was like the circumstances to the extent that these people came together and maybe also discussed these issues?
Yeah, so we would have it's kind of back to that model. Our model of engagement is, so there's an open invitation, which is, we put a call out that says we are having this event on this date, and we would like you to come along. If you're interested, then come along, and here's how. And people will click a link and they'll sign up and they'll get the information, and or if it's online, they'll register and get the link. That's the kind of the most consistent way that we do it. There are times, so for example, the event on Saturday was specifically targeted to ethnic minority young people, because we felt that it was important to create a space for them, an exclusive space, so that, again, a brave space and a safe space, but a space where they also could feel the energy of the connection of the thing that they share, which is being in Ireland, but also having this one part of their identity. So that's sometimes we do that specifically. We would gather young people with a specific purpose and a specific identity, so that we can ensure that their voices, and again, my experience would say that the comfort of engagement is created by, not just by me, but by the other people that are in the space. So it was absolutely brilliant to see young people in the space together, and they're not all the same, by no means all the same. People from Afghanistan, people from Spain, people from Africa, so the people from different religions, but what I suppose what they felt in the space was that there was something in common enough with them from the lived experience of being in Ireland that was worth gathering for. And what's interesting is, and really important for me, is that people aren't, people might have, it might be a ethnic minority group of young people, but they still see the world through the eyes of what's happening in the world. It's not just their lived experience that are the only issues. They see issues that are presenting as well.
Thank you very much. Then please go on with your presentation.
Yeah, I'm minding the time also. So one of the questions that we carry in our work as well is, in order to frame the spaces where we operate, and this is really important, is that, if you were to look at this photograph and I was to ask, who are the people You could guess, you could make predictions, you could wonder. If I said to you, which one of these young people had addiction issues growing up, you couldn't tell me. If I asked you which one of these young people is dyslexic, you couldn't tell me. If I said which one of them is from the traveling community, you couldn't tell me. One of the young people we know has a different colored skin. That is one part that is obvious. And again, in our work, we recognize that that does make life more difficult in spaces for people like that individual, because we are existing in systems where oppression is already present, and particularly racism. But it's really important for us to create a space where you're able to say, do you know what it's like? And in this space, you can find out what it's like. So if we create dialogue, if we create brave spaces where young people can gather and then discover from each other, what's your lived experience? What does it mean to be you on a day in Ireland? Or what challenges are you facing? If you've got mental health issues, how do you pursue change? Or when we come together and think about climate crisis, how do we together find ways to, and what can we draw on from our own experiences that will empower our change making in terms of climate, for example? So do you know what it's like is a really important question, that and we facilitate that in a way that says, come together, be in these spaces and find out what it means to be in someone else's or for someone else's lived experience.
Yeah, we got one question here. So Diana is asking, what is the first step for young people to start to build a sustainable future? What would be your view on this issue?
Yeah, so without being corny, I think, and genuinely, I think the first challenge for me is that they realize there's a threat to a sustainable future, and to explore, because I think young people have to come to a realization, and that's about creating spaces where there isn't judgment, that there isn't an expectation that you should know this. You don't think there's a climate crisis? What's wrong with you? It's about giving them the tools to explore, when they look at the world, what's happening and what does that mean if we play it out into the future. So I think the first step is to create spaces with people who have maybe some experiences and some stories, but are able to facilitate the exploration. And again, as was spoken about earlier on, about the importance of curiosity. So if I'm saying to people, oh, the climate is, do you want to come together and explore that? And then the building is the action part. That's the hands. The head and the heart have to do their thing, but the hands is the building part. And I think that's about, for us anyway, it's about young people saying, we demand a place at the table where decisions are being made. We will look to our own lives. We have a thing about the kind of when you drop a stone in the water, that the first ripple is you. And then beyond that is your family. And beyond that is your community or your friends and your people. And then and we would have a tool that we would use called, it's PLNG, and it's personal, local, national, global. We would call it PLING. So we would say to young people and support them to explore, what does this sustainable future mean for you personally? And then to support them to expand, zoom out then, what does that mean locally? Is there, are we talking about renewable energy? Is there wind farms? Is there, again, biodiversity? Is there pollination in your community? What is the energy that you're consuming? When you trace that up, is it coming from renewables or is it coming from coal? But I think the first step for young people is to, find the realization and then find your people. Like, I really think there's find your tribe, find your allies, come together, share your values, and then they're the kind of, maybe the scaffolding, we would say, or the pillars upon which you build a platform for change. Is that okay?
Lovely.
So I'll share a couple more. So yeah, and this kind of builds on what we were just saying, that sometimes identifying the burning issue is the easy part. And beyond that is where the challenge exists. And we would have a really interesting tool that, and I'll do this first, and then I'll share an interesting tool maybe as a kind of a takeaway. But we would say there's 5 C's for chasing change, and that's just trying to use all the C's in the spiel. But critical thinking is important. Finding solutions, and don't accept that there's no alternative. Creativity is important, thinking outside the box, etc., etc. Collaboration, finding allies, working together, finding a way to collaborate rather than just pursuing your own thing, because collaboration will always have a bigger impact. Communication is really important, within groups and with the outside world. And that's, again, that the better that operates, the better people are on the same page, and that the journey, as you progress and the momentum built is sustainable as well. And then compassion, and it goes back to that love in the word cloud, that compassion for self. And again, we could judge ourselves harshly on every time that we don't live a sustainable life or we don't do the right thing. But compassion for the living world, because again, we are all part of a living world. All the living things are on it. We're not separate to the world. We're a part of it. And to have compassion for that really shifts how you see things, in my view. Got 2 more, if that's all right. Just to give, again, like we focused a lot on the positive change and pursuing change, and we often, sometimes recognize that in our spaces that the people who turn up you might presume that they're all on the same page and they all believe the same things, but that's not good enough for us. So we recognize that it's important to go into spaces where people might not be there yet. And this is a tool that we use to support young people who are doing their own workshops and their own facilitation, and even working together. That in any group, we must maybe hold and recognize that there are these types, and that our job is always about positive momentum. But that doesn't happen in one session, in one workshop. That we meet antagonists along the way who don't care, who are against what you're proposing. We meet people who are indifferent, nothing to do with me. I could sit in Ireland and wake up every day and not have to care about floods, maybe, or drought. But if I don't care about it, then eventually it will land on my doorstep. But if I'm indifferent, then that's a problem, and there's a challenge there. We have bystanders; they see what's going on, but it's just something that they consume passively. And then they're the kind of 3 challenging modes. We have sympathizer then, who just feels the things, and that's all. And if you just feel the things, feel sad, feel sorry, again, change doesn't come from that unless you activate the feelings. So we would say the empathizer is next. And that's someone who recognizes the feelings and then imagine what it's like to be in another situation where there's a struggle or a challenge, and then thinks, yeah, something needs to be done about that. That's not right. And then the empathy actor is, again, the ultimate, and it goes back to the question about start point, but in many ways, the end point, whatever the start point might be, we are trying to inspire young people to become empathy actors, where they see, they feel, they imagine what it's like to be in someone else's situation, or imagine what a future will be like if we don't do things or don't change, and then decide, I'm going to do something about that. There is a role for me, and that's something that we try to infuse into our work. And one more thing, if that's all right, Mark, that I share. And if people I'll have a quick look at the Menti. If people are still on the Mentimeter, there's 2 slides ahead. There's a really interesting challenge that I offer you before I go. So if you can do that yourselves, it's just about again, how do you make decisions that will impact across your life? What do you tap into? And that's also really interesting for us to explore with young people. But I want to share something about what's happening at the moment in EU Youth Dialogue, if that's okay, and just to again frame where we're at in our work in the now. I'm going to stop sharing this and I'll move to another graphic. And I might throw the link for this as well, maybe into the chat, and it could be shared. Is it sharing? No. The Padlet coming up, Mark, now? Ah, here it is, slow. Ooh. I know it's not coming up. So try one more time. But it's half one. Maybe I would be stealing time if I go into. What I'll do is I might throw the link into our chat and it could be transmitted. But there's an invitation also for people to engage in youth dialogue, and it'll give people a flavor, I suppose, of one way as well that when we don't have people together, we also give them opportunities to link in their own time, in their own space. So there's something about gatherings and how important they are, but also about in your own time. If you click this, you can have you can get involved in the conversation when we're not present in spaces together. Apologies if I've went on. I know it's 1:30.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, thank you very much. Maybe I would like to ask one last question, because I think this is very crucial, like how we get the empathizers to the empathy actors, right? So what do you think is with your experience, what is the most valuable tool to do that, to bring people to start acting and not being just standing on the side and thinking, yeah, I support this, but I'm not willing to change, or I'm not willing to actively be part in that?
Yeah, I think it's for us. It's really important that the movement, as you've kind of presented it, we've to move past recognizing the issues and into what is needed in response to this reality. And we would have, again, tools to do the mapping of that. What is needed? Who has the power to change what the change that's required? What is my connection to those? And if it's nothing, then how do I make a connection to this? So for us, it's like if you need to talk to, we did a consultation about renewable energy in Ireland, where EirGrid is the national provider of energy in Ireland, and they're exploring how they're going to change how energy is produced, distributed. So for us, it was like, well, if you're going to do that, come and talk to young people, because they have views on this. And in the same way, for us, it might be a school, a group of young people in a school might look across their school and say, we're not doing, if we did an audit of our sustainable practices in this school, what could we do with that? We'll present it to the board of management, to the leadership, and we'll make an expectation about change and tell them why it needs to happen. So for me, it's really about kind of seeing what's wrong and then identifying what needs to change in order for it not to be so wrong anymore. There's no magic wands out there, sadly. But I think when you recognize what the need is, then you have to decide, well, how do we pursue the change in response to the need, rather than just getting, this is wrong every day. This is wrong. The change doesn't come from this is wrong. It's the example is important. Hope that answers it.
Thank you very much, Dermot. Yeah, we're a little bit over time already, but thank you very much for your nice presentation and for answering all these questions. We are very happy that you gave us some insight about this kind of engagement and how young people can be active. You also will receive a small present from us, and we hope it arrives very soon. Thank you, Dermot.
Thanks so much.
So we are at the end of our conference. So just little last words from my side. Thank you for staying with us. Thank you for attending this conference with us. Thank you for asking all these very interesting questions. And it is our first conference as this master's degree program, but it will not be the last one, I suppose. I guess we will have a second a second one in maybe February or March, something like this, next year. So you can definitely tune in at that time again. And yeah, also we would like to thank our universities, Nova University, UCD, but also the universities in Poznan and Krems for supporting us in this regard. And yeah, it was a great time spending with you. I hope you learned a lot like I did. And see you next time when it's time for another CSS conference. Bye bye.